because the purple color that's in the grape goes into the juice and into ultimate.
See here? Put like grapes there, and then they added yeast.
And it will squeeze the juice out using this thing to crank it down.
They may add that into wine.
Yeah, that's classy.
I wanna tell you a story the only way that I can. I'm just replay sentiment that came before me. And one day the world is gonna see another man replacing me. That's just the way it's gotta be. It's always
is because the purple color that's in the grape goes into the juice and into ultimate.
See here? Put like grapes there, and then they added yeast.
And it will squeeze the juice out using this thing to crank it down.
They may add that into wine.
Yeah, that's classy.
I wanna tell you a story the only way that I can. I'm just replay sentiment that came before me. And one day the world is gonna see another man replacing me. That's just the way it's gotta be. It's always
Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to our Friday food and wine pairing special with special guest Jalal Haddad playing some music for us here today. He's in the studio audience at the moment, pre-gaming with some beer, and we're here about ready to get some wine and food on. So thank you all for joining us. And I'm Kevin Luther. I'm the owner and winemaker here at Voluptuary and Lucid Wines. And yeah, I make the wine and launched all of this a couple of years ago after making wine for other people for 15 years, going to wine school and traveling the world making wine, running other people's wineries. Decided to focus on my own thing and doing it my way with organic and natural wines, which is these two brands that a lot of you guys know about already. But if you don't, Voluptuary is the fully organically certified, super small production stuff. Lucid Wines is still all natural, organically made, sulfite-free, and vegan, but just a little bit more laid back in style and a little more affordable price point too. So yeah, we're tasting through a lineup of mostly loose, actually all lucid today. Yeah, so it's all lucid lineup here today. And tasting some awesome food prepared by Jerome Luther.
Yeah, and that's what I do. I quit my cushy corporate job to come drink wine, prepare food, and make bad jokes. Oh, and get you guys your wine. So, it's a tough life, but somebody had to do it. So,
indeed,
here we are now.
So, all right, we already got a comment. Cherie, happy birthday. Her sweet boyfriend got her this, so that's awesome. Yeah, happy birthday. And thank you everyone also for joining us, whatever the occasion, whether it's a birthday, a celebration, or just a Friday night stuck at home with COVID drinking. So we're glad to be able to drink with you and provide some entertainment, hopefully. So also let us know, is the sound coming through clearly? Are you able to hear us and see us well? Want to make sure everything's coming through. Um, Tell us yes, no in the comments, and we can always make little adjustments as the show goes on. Otherwise, we'll assume it's good and keep talking and making bad jokes. So, yeah.
Yeah, so each of you out there have one of these. It's the tasting sheet listing out the wines that we're testing through today and some basic details on them. There's also individual sheets for each of them with more information and a food pairing guide specific for this lineup that you can access through the Facebook or the website if you want to check that out. Otherwise, you're welcome to just drink and play along. So there's various kit sizes we'll show you later. But all of that information is on there so you can access it and have all the same paperwork as we have in front of us now.
Yeah, so all right, cool. From the streams, it looks like everything's coming through good and working out. So, neat. We're going to roll right into this then.
Usually we monologue for at least 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So you guys are in luck today.
Exactly. I actually did a hour-long private Zoom tasting just before this, about half an hour before prepping and getting over to this. So I'm warmed up from another taste. I'm a little smoother and less rambly this time. I don't know if smooth's the right word, but not less rambly either, actually. Yeah.
Anyway. Well, you're certainly defeating both of those now. So, yeah.
All right. So let's pour some wine.
Yeah.
We have the L1 Skin Contact White Blend. This is a Chardonnay blend. So when I say Chardonnay blend, I mean it is primarily Chardonnay. So you can see that bottle right there. It's cool art from Micah Crandallbear on the front, and the back has all the particulars.
So this one has been one of our biggest sellers, but we've also had a pretty large quantity on it. But in the last couple weeks since we announced this tasting, sales have gone through the roof. And we're practically sold out of this. I believe we've got 2.5 cases left or something along those lines.
If that.
So if you like this, buy it fast. There will be new whites coming out, but this next vintage doesn't have the skin contact in it.
Well, it has a skin contact, so it's the same kind of blend, but it's very different tasting. So if you like this one, get some of those last bottles, because the next vintage, while theoretically similar, year to year, that's one of the things about winemaking. It tastes different every time. So even if I theoretically make the same wine, it's going to taste different.
That's the good and bad of it is, the grapes, the terroir, the time, the effort, the barrel, all of these little variables. Even if you do everything exactly the same, it's not going to be the same. And that's kind of fun.
Especially, industrial winemaking, they strive for consistency. I strive for quality and unique expression of these components, of the vineyard, of the year, of my winemaking. So I'm not trying to be consistent. I'm making small production stuff that's like, get these 300 bottles while they're there. Anyway, cool. The first wine, that one, Skin Contact, for me, how this wine comes across is very fruit forward. The Chardonnay component is kind of your base of white wine. A lot of people think of it as almost the definition of white wine. It's like, oh, I'll have a Chardonnay. They just mean like a white wine. Chardonnay tends to come with like peach, pear, apple, they say orchard fruits, and an overall kind of medium palate. It's not too sour, not too sweet, kind of right down the middle. And to take that, a lot of people take this direction to enhance that kind of baseline flavor. Winemakers joke that it's like the tofu of grapes. It's just kind of a baseline flavor you can add on to. So a lot of winemakers use tons of oak to give it this really vanilla, toasted, oaky flavor. And then they send it through a secondary fermentation. The primary fermentation creates the alcohol. That's how we make wine. The secondary fermentation that happens in Chardonnay and some other wines is, it does a lot of things, but it makes the wine softer, rounder, and it gives it a buttery flavor because it produces this molecule called diacetyl. It smells like butter. So
it's actually the same molecule in butter that makes butter smell like butter. I learned that on a previous show.
That's true. Jerome picks stuff up fast. I'm like, man, how does he know? Oh, wait, that's what I said it once. So if you age Chardonnay in an oak barrel, with malolactic fermentation, you get buttery flavors and toasted, like pastry flavors. And while that can be really nice, and actually the next vintage kind of goes a little further that direction, but so many Chardonnays are like over the top that direction. They just smell like, Jelly Belly butter popcorn flavor or something. It's gross. And I don't like that. So I want to do a more balanced Chardonnay, and that's one of the reasons I blended it. So the Malvasia Bianca is a really fruit-forward, aromatic grape variety that is originally from Italy, and it has aromatics similar to like muscat. You get in some more tropical fruit and floral notes, but it also has some nice citrus. It's fresher than muscat. It's not sweet like muscat.
So that like citrus, the acidity, the fruitiness, that that nose on it, that's the Malvasia Bianca, and the little bit of like funk and like a little bit like stronger notes on it. That's the skin contact, the tannins from the skins.
Yeah.
Through it.
So a lot of that crispness and freshness is from the Malvasia. It's also partly from the fact that I picked these grapes really on the early side at a ripeness level that's before they get too overripe and sweet, when it's still more acid driven.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of what makes it that way as well. The skin contact. So the wine is called skin contact. That's because most white wines are made by fermenting just the juice of white grapes. They don't use the skins at all. If you ferment with the skins, you get a little bit of this sort of green golden color from the skins, as well as a little more weight to the flavor and a little more spiciness and intensity of fruit. So some winemakers call it orange wine. It's an ancient technique that was just how they made white wine before modern winemakers started making it as just the juice to make it more fruity and simple. So it's a cool old school technique that a lot of hipster winemakers, a lot of folks down in like Oakland and San Francisco who are making wine are doing this technique now. That's something I really like using as well. So that all comes together to make this wine very fruit forward, but complex and crisp and refreshing. It's not sweet. It's just fruity and refreshing, which probably, at that point, it's kind of a good tie into, what were your thoughts on some food pairings for this wine, Joe?
So as usual, and sometimes I have my real complex pairings, and that's a lot of what you have on your tasting sheets are some of the complex things I've done before. But today I did my usual. I went by some ethnic market and bought really weird things. So I've got like pickled radish and smoked duck and stuff along those lines. But the things that kind of jumped out to me on this is, as we mentioned, sometimes your color often goes along with your wine. A dark red wine, you want darker items. Lighter, you want something, medium tone. I immediately went to the peaches, which tie into the kind of crisp orchard notes, and then tried some of that with a little tajin, which is a chili lime salt used in Mexican culture, which I thought was better than just the peach on its own. And I also think the roasted cauliflower worked really well with it, because it does, even without any butter or anything on it, it's got those kind of buttery notes where it's just soft, kind of melt in your mouth, a little bit of that like creaminess without any cream. So those are the two things I gravitated to. I'm going to try around and do it with some things that I wouldn't necessarily pair it with, because I find that interesting. Sometimes you can find something you wouldn't expect to be a good pairing. Like I found out pickled ginger is a fantastic pairing to spicy red wines, for example. But today, those are the two that jumped out to me from the board that I have here.
Yeah. Both are also just tasty food on their own. Drum's really good cooking. So yeah, that is one of those little shortcuts in food and wine pairing is, if you don't really know, if you're not sure, think matching colors. Like white wine tends to go with like fish and, creamy white sauces and citrus and, lighter colored fruits and stuff. And darker red wines tend to go with like red meats and mushrooms and rich sauces that have hoisin or soy or barbecue in them or something. So it's a nice little shortcut. It's not perfect, but it's like 80% of the time you'll be mostly right. So
yeah, and as a good example on that, like that pickled ginger, real great with red wines, even though it's white. It does not work with the skin contact. That was not a good pairing.
Probably brings out too much spice or something.
It actually makes it taste kind of bitter. I'm not sure why that is, but the two of them combined, that's what I'm getting. I'll try a little.
I can kind of see that.
Grilled oyster mushroom next.
Another thing you'll see is that if a wine's already acidic and you have something that's acidic with it, it can bring out the acidity. And when you have an intensity of acidity, sometimes that also enhances bitterness. So I wonder if that's the case here, where we're getting both that like spice from ginger and the acidity of the fact that it's pickled ginger.
Try some of the grilled oyster mushrooms with it. I think that actually works really well. Again, something I was like, what else do I have here that's kind of light? See if it works. I think it does.
Yeah. So whether you're an expert or not in food and wine pairing, the best thing about it is like ballpark it, make your best guesses, but there's nothing that replaces just trying it.
And there's
Try
no
them together.
right or wrong answer. If you like it, that's a good pairing. Just try.
Yeah. So it is fun that way. Like that's, I think, half the fun. Having just someone else pair it for you was like, awesome, they chose great pairings. Cool. But actually just trying how different things interact teaches you a lot about how flavor, taste, aroma of the food and wine play together. So, all right, that wine, now that we've done the food pairings, and I thought that oyster mushroom was nice. It brought out some of the funkiness in the wine, I think, which otherwise wasn't really standing out to me.
I don't know if it didn't have skin contact, if it would have worked. That was more of a crisp white. I don't think the mushrooms would work with it.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, all right. So then the rest of my pairings. So life pairings. This wine is definitely like a summertime wine. It's crisp. It's refreshing. It's fun. So for me, this is like spring and summertime, hanging out with your friends, hanging out by the pool or lake, or, just like kicking it in the hammock by yourself on a hot day and like half asleep, half drinking, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. That's how I like to spend Sundays. And then my music pairing for this kind of matches that. It's from the Polish Ambassador, and the song is "Chill or Be Chilled," and that's Nicki Minaj is actually rapping on that. So, very fun song.
Big Nicki fan. I love her.
I like her too. And the literary pairing is a quote from The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and the quote is, "We are travelers on a cosmic journey, stardust, swirling and dancing in the eddies and whirlpools of infinity. Life is eternal. We have stopped for a moment to encounter each other, to meet, to love, to share. This is a precious moment. It's a little parenthesis in eternity." I just realized as reading that, I'm not sure if I know how to pronounce parenthesis correctly. I was really certain I did it wrong. It's one of those words that I've read a million times, but realize I don't often speak out loud. Those of you who learned a lot of your English language by reading, not talking, probably know my struggle. So those are my quirkier pairings for the wines. Any last thoughts or comments on the wine before we move on?
No, not at all. Although I do have a comment on the next one, and I'm not sure which is which. On one sheet, we've got the L3 Barbera. On the other, we got the V7 Zinfandel. I'm going to go open a case and see what we actually sent out to you guys. Kevin and I have different paperwork.
Yeah, sorry. I printed out what I've got here in front of me, but sometimes I mix my stuff up as I'm creating my tasting sheets to go along with the tastings for the week.
And I also make mistakes, so we'll see.
So whatever you guys have in front of you for that second wine, it'll be your first red wine. In your kits, there will be the white one and then 4 reds. They go in order there, so you can line those up. They should be labeled, of course, as well. And crack open that next wine and get that guy in your glass. Wasn't anything left in mine. So while he's checking, I'm going to pour the next one here.
Well, how are you going to pour the next one if you don't know if it's the right one?
Well, just to have something in my glass. Got to get Jalal a little wine too here. Jalal's like, I don't really care. Just pour me some wine, bro.
It is the V7 Da Vinci's Wings. So my sheet is wrong.
Interesting. Okay. So we do have one flipsure this week. All right. So pour that V7 Da Vinci's Wings Zinfandel into your glass, and we will crack a new bottle here since I put some Barbera in my glass. But real quick, actually, talk about Lucid versus...
My sheet is right. Whatever you printed out is not this week's.
Wasn't that funny? Okay, so...
Ha!
Redeemed! All right. Well, that makes it... Okay. So
that makes it okay.
Which one are we actually on?
We're on the V7, so you might have to go grab one from the fridge unless you want to just share with me here.
Sure, I'll just share with you.
Kevin's on a health kick right now, so he's just swirling and spitting. And That's why everything is vegan other than this smoked duck as well.
Yeah.
So
I'm doing vegan and no drinking. And so my drinking is me tasting and spitting or like the tiniest little micro dosing tastes of wine. But anyway, I'm crazy. I wanted to mention one thing about the two brands. Well, I don't have it in front of me, but the Lucid is art from Micah Crandallbear. He is a Sacramento-based artist who does really awesome art. He does all of our Lucid stuff, and he was a childhood friend of our older brother John, and just blew up and is now, nationwide and internationally becoming famous. And just happened at the same time as he let us use his art on our label, so we're super grateful for that. Love his art. And then all of our voluptuary wines have art from Robert and Shauna Park Harrison. So they are East Coast artists who do. I'm just going to grab a bottle so I can show you the art.
we don't have any open.
Cool. They do this really neat analog manipulated fine art photography where they just use stage sets, costumes, and darkroom photography manipulation to create these really cool images that look just like totally digitally manipulated, but they're not. It's all analog, super old school, beautiful art. So then this V7 Zinfandel, for me, it's a kind of Zinfandel that it's not your big jammy fruit forward Zinfandel you get from Lodi often. It's high altitude grown in the Sierra Nevada foothills at almost 3,000 feet at Narrowgate Vineyards. And it's this really cool, 100% organic and biodynamic. Oh, you already got that? Yeah, that's right.
I would have tried that Barbera. But...
Right. And it, because of the high altitude, there's very cool nights. And those cool nights tend to create more spicy and herbaceous flavors in the wine than you would get in a hotter, lower altitude climate. So whereas some Zins can be so jammy, this one, it's like blackberry bramble. It's the blackberry, but it's also like the blackberry bush. It's the spice and it's the smell of the woods around you when you're, or the river when you're picking. You know, it's a more nature and spicy outdoor herbaceous smells for me. And coming along with that as well, because it's not so hot, it cools down at night. The wine holds acidity better, so you get a little more crispness and acid that you normally do in Zinfandel. You also get a heavier weight to the wine. I don't know, do you get that in this wine?
Yeah, I can see that because it's normally you don't associate spicy tannic wines with high acidity as well. But as you reference that, you can kind of taste that in here. It's got a high acid content for.
Yeah, and so this is.
It's not microdosing on
it. That is something you don't run into as much in red wines, is a little higher acid and tannins, but it makes for a red wine that pairs really nicely with heavier foods, with more intense flavors. It also makes for a red wine that ages really well. This is a wine that could totally age like 10 years and just keep getting better because all that intense acid and tannin will continue to soften over time. So then this wine, all of our red wines, I age on a variety of different woods, both oak barrels, but also in this case, some cherry and maple wood. And those bring in just a little more cherry and white pepper flavors from the cherry wood, and from the maple, sort of this maple molasses characteristic that just kind of rounds the wine out and gives it a little more depth. Let's see what else. Any other quirky stuff here? Or, you know what? Let's hop into some food pairings on this one. What are your thoughts on food here, Jerome?
Well, and you see the ones we have listed out there: steak, shiitake mushrooms, dark sauces, smoky, fatty, pickled things. I do like. I went to immediately those type of things, and I think a lot of those do pair really well with it. My cherry tomatoes go well with it. The smoked duck goes fantastic with it. Some of the others here, I haven't gone for the pickled ginger, but I think that's going to be. I'm looking forward to that. I tried shiitakes, and I thought they were pretty good with it, but not great. I got some grilled shiitakes. The shiitakes with some Concord grape jam, though, was fantastic with it. The fruitiness, along with the shiitake funk, I thought worked really well. Well, and those are actually king oyster.
Oh,
well, yeah, that is the shiitake.
Hold on to that for later, too.
Yeah, so you might not have all these things because I know that's not a standard thing. Multiple types of mushrooms and kimchi and whatnot. But I tried to play off the general concepts, but show how you can do that without just going like the cheese and chocolate and fruit, your standard three things that everybody pairs things with, or meats. It's like you can do that with the random vegetables and mushrooms and pickled items just as well. So.
Yeah, and I think cheese is a really awesome pairing. Did you talk about any cheese pairings?
Do we have some on here? I didn't really talk about it, and I think similar to like the duck, I think smoked cheeses like smoked Gouda, or like I know they have like some smoked cheddars and things like that. I think that would be great pairing with this. I don't have any because I mostly shop at Asian markets and they don't really do cheese.
Yeah, so I agree with them on that smoked stuff, or stuff that has a little bit more saltiness to it. To help the saltiness in cheese or food in general, which is why a lot of these grilled things with a little salt on them, or maybe some pickled things go really well, is a heavier red wine tends to really like salty and fatty things because it's almost like a chemical thing that goes on in your mouth, that the creaminess or the fattiness or oiliness of a dish actually kind of coats your mouth and softens the perception of the wine. And the saltiness, chefs will use this. If your dish is kind of too intensely like spicy or sour, you can actually kind of soften that edge a little bit with salt. Well, it's not like a super intense technique used in cooking. You do see that in wine, though. If you're eating a salty food with a really acidic or tannic wine, it just makes it perceive softer as a wine. So it's one of the reasons why cheese goes so well. But you can apply the same base concepts to other things, just grilled veggies.
Like the smoked duck. That's like exactly what you're describing there.
Right? Duck is such a rich, fatty meat. So, yeah, a lot of it is the underlying concepts and almost like chemistry, although that sounds weird, but like the chemistry concepts behind food and wine pairing. Like, you could just memorize pairings, or you could, like, when you understand the concepts, it starts becoming really easy. It's like, oh, I could do crazy things if I'm just looking for a salty influence. What if I, made this salty, Like, salty chocolate actually is way better for pairing with wine, especially heavy red wines, than, like, a sweet chocolate. Like, if you have a bitter chocolate with a little sea salt, freaking awesome. If you have a really sweet chocolate, that does not pair with any wine unless it's, like, really sweet. Like, sweet chocolate sucks with wine mostly.
Grilled salted shishito peppers. Surprisingly good with it as well.
Okay.
Let's see if he wins the shishito lottery. Shishitos, 9 out of 10 of them are about jalapeno heat. 1 out of 10 is closer to like a Fresno chili habanero. Did you win?
Wow.
You can't tell from the outside.
That's better than caffeine. That's good. I'm awake. I'm gonna hit some water.
Yeah, and he's got a much higher heat tolerance than me, but you can see it clearly. Like mine was mine was one of the 9. His was the 10th.
And I just went for it too. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, oh, these things aren't spicy.
That's the fun of them. They're great. You'll see them on a lot of menus out at restaurants as like an appetizer, and that's kind of the fun. A lot of people pick at them, and every once in a while, somebody's just like, oh, and they start sweating, and good times.
Okay, cool. So wine, checking my notes here. Yeah, I'm just looking for the note I have on this one. Oh, I was actually looking for my my weird pairings. Stall for me for a second, Drum.
So, I actually found on this one, I was expecting, because it's kind of a spicier wine, and I mentioned this before, the pickled ginger to be a good pairing for it, and I really didn't think it was. It's one of my favorite things that I discovered in the last pairing meal we did, and I'm going to keep trying it with the others, but it wasn't a hit on this, and it just goes to show, like we were saying earlier, sometimes you have to test around and try different things. On the other hand, as we were saying with the shishito peppers, the spice of this seemed to work really well, because you can both contrast or play with the flavors in this, and it's kind of a spicy wine. Adding the spice to it really kind of enhances that.
Yeah. Well done, Drum. Thank you. So, my other pairings for this wine. So, life pairing, since this one does have that woodsy characteristic to me, especially growing at high altitude where there's a lot of pine trees, those deciduous trees in general. You get that foresty feel. So I think of deep woods backpacking as a life pairing with this. And then my literary pairing is from John Steinbeck and his travelogue book, Travels with Charlie in Search of America. And the quote is, "I have always lived violently, drunk hugely, eaten too much or not at all, slept around the clock or missed 2 nights of sleeping, worked too hard and too long in glory, or slobbed for a time in utter laziness. I've lifted, pulled, chopped, climbed, made love with joy, and taken my hangovers as a consequence, not as a punishment." So I read that when I was like 16 or 17, and it was 100% what I was not. I was like,
he made love like sadly and despondently at the time. Like
I was like very timid and like, so I was like, man, this guy, like he's envisioning a life of just like living life boldly and saying like, screw it, like yeah, shit's gonna happen, like there's gonna be negative effects, but it's a consequence of my action, you know. And then I'm just gonna keep doing and keep living and live big, you know. And that really inspired me. It changed my life path. That was one of several things in a really influential time in my life that totally changed who I was as a person.
You might be having an issue there. But I'm going to jump back to food for a second because I was just kind of randomly trying around other things. I wonder what might work. I wonder what might not. My little seaweed crackers, seasoned salted nori, was actually a very good pairing with this. And my kimchi was an amazing pairing with this.
Kimchi, interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly is it in there. You know, the saltiness, the spiciness, you know, the funkiness, but I really like it.
Right, I gotta try that.
You have so many more
It's
comments
all
than
working,
me.
yeah. So yeah, another thing that's really good with wine is pickled stuff. It's not necessarily intuitive like kimchi with wine, but it's remarkably good.
Isn't that?
Yeah, it actually makes I would almost think the kimchi, like the spice and acidity, would make the wine taste like harsher. But
It doesn't.
didn't.
It
actually
kind of
made
mellows it
smoother.
out a little, yeah.
Oh, that's trippy. So, all right, and then my music pairing for this is S.O.B. by Nathaniel Ratcliffe. And it's a song, it's a really upbeat, happy song about delirium tremens, about relapsing from alcohol withdrawals, or something along those lines. And as I'm like 10 days into a no drinking 30 days, it felt appropriate and on theme. So I'm not going through delirium tremens yet, but I am mildly irritable. So yeah, that finishes the V7 Da Vinci's Wings Zinfandel and rolls us right into the third wine here. Although let me check my schedule here. Yes. Well, the second here we're gonna have Jalal come up and perform. So do you want to perform now or after the next wine? Get another beer in you?
I have a beer.
Oh, all right. Well, then let's have you on up here. If you're ready.
Ready.
Let's do it. All right, Jalal's going to come up and perform a song for us. And thank you, Jalal. And we'll see you guys again in a second.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I haven't been here in a while. It's been a minute since the last time I got to play. But they keep bringing me back, which means something.
It means you're awesome. We love you, Jalal.
Always love a little extra validation in my life. And I just want everybody to be clear who's watching. They may have swapped the wines this time and it looked like some things didn't quite land, but these guys got printouts galore. Everything is planned to a T. Like, these guys are doing it right. So I just wanted to point that out. I don't want people going around thinking that they're not doing what they...
We got good judgment in musicians.
All right. So I'm going to give this a try. My biggest thing is remembering the words. It's always a tricky bit, but...
Have another beer.
Wish me luck. Also, this is Device Brewing. It's actually located in the same campus as this warehouse. So
Did you pick that up on your way over?
that's why I was 5 minutes late.
No.
They don't have Apple Pay, so you got to pay with cash, and it takes forever. All right, I'm gonna try a song that's a little bit more fast and aggressive here. I'm in that kind of mood. Whoa! I walked the slowly road, I picked the only road, so I placed it in your hand and said, you'll see me in your dreams, I'll be dressed in green, I'll be the outline of a plan. Whoa! The sun will rise again, you will be frightened then, and I'll be something of the past. I'll dance from tree to tree, you'll find what's left of me, and you will wonder where I am. A secret walk inside your garden, observing all the things you do. I see you there staring down from heaven, but I'm hidden from you. Whoa! Whoa! The stripes and stars above, oxymoronic love, provide the fodder for the war. The fights rage on the ground, symphonic holy sound, for the gods we plan them well. You're standing up inside your castle, forced off the stage of your weather throne. I wave our hand through the smoke and fire, a crimson sunrise on our home. Whoa! The mass walks hand in hand, reclaiming all their land, again considered rightful heirs. But now the merchantmen, furious and downtrodden, will seek an end to this affair. Just one more thing to consider before the morning. In response to adverse action, relocated retribution. Thank you. All right, thanks, guys.
I don't know about you guys, but when the CD finally comes out, I'm gonna be in line for that shit.
Yeah.
Keep waiting.
Jalal's like half retired at this point. He's although he's transitioning, he's trying to get more into.
Retire.
Sorry, he's transitioning. He's trying to get more into like commercial work. He's actually created our jingle, which we haven't premiered yet because I've been slacking on meeting up with him to create a video to go with it. But we've got an awesome jingle from him. We'll show you guys some other time.
I don't know if being the owner, winemaker, salesman, vineyard manager, etc., really counts as slacking. But we'll give you a pass on that one.
But, so, all right, pour some more wine in your glass. I think that's the time.
Time for the L4.
Yeah. So, all right. Pour that wine for yourself, and I'll wait for that one there. And this one, the L4, just say, oh yeah, I got my sheets all wrong. There we go.
Just toss the other one. Keep that one that I have roasted.
All right. So, the L4 Ripen Zinfandel is a really cool one where you're going to see a riper style Zinfandel on this one.
And what does that mean? Just the grapes are riper when you picked them?
Yeah, it's It's more of a
I asked the stupid questions so you guys don't have to.
right. Yeah, so it's no stupid question. It's a riper style Zinfandel, so meaning the grapes were picked at a higher sugar content at a riper point, which tends to create flavors in the final wine, which taste like riper fruit. So you're going to get it's that same blackberry, but not like the blackberry bush in the forest and the herbs anymore. Now you're getting like blackberry and blackberry jam and blackberry pie and plum and just raisins, these kind of really, really ripe flavors. And it's because the grapes were almost raisins when we picked them and very ripe. So it just kind of makes sense. It also means this wine is far higher alcohol. So it shows you how much difference. Two things. One is how ripe the grapes were, influences the wine, and where it was grown. The first one was grown at really high altitude. It's cooler, and we picked it at lower sugar level. Second one was grown still in the foothills, but at a much lower elevation, at about 700 feet versus 2,000. I'm sorry, versus almost 3,000. So much lower elevation, much riper grapes. That creates a whole different flavor profile of the wine, even though it's the same grape variety, Zinfandel.
Yeah, different color as well. Or...
Yeah, actually, I'll take some of that.
Well, you could get some from there. No, I'm just going to need to refill.
So the, you're going to get that intensity of fruit flavor, but it does have some spice to it. And a lot of that comes actually from the alcohol, which gives a perception of spice. Part of it also comes from the fact that I included a little bit of stems in the fermentation, which the grape stems will actually bring in a little bit of spice. And then I aged this wine on cherry wood. And that cherry wood was really there to enhance that already really ripe blackberry cherry kind of fruit flavor profile. And this is a wine that, because it does perceive so sweet, you almost get an actual sweetness kind of characteristic to the wine. And as with all of our Lucid wines, it's organically grown but not certified, and organically made, sulfite-free, and vegan. All of our wines across the board are that way. So it's about as healthy as you can get while still getting drunk.
Do you have one out here?
I don't think so. No. So, yeah, it's a nice wine. I think this is one that, while it is very complex in some ways, for me, is just a really fun wine to drink. It can pair well with food because it has a lot going on and a decent intensity of alcohol and acid to kind of handle the food. It's also just fun. And you have some thoughts on the food pairings?
Well, as you mentioned, actually, the sheet largely, contains previous pairings I've made where I did a Philly style grill up where you grilled some some flank steak or something with nice marbling of the fat, along with some peppers and onions. But it really does play well with ripe fruit as well. I think the strawberries is great with this. The tomatoes are pretty decent. But I think a lot of those, fruity, I guess tomatoes are technically a fruit. Actually, so are bell peppers, I guess, aren't they?
But yeah, that's kind of funny that I guess they are.
But I think that works really well with this. Joel's getting the next closest thing so he can drink along.
So, I think because it has that intensity, it can go well with barbecue just in general. Not necessarily something super smoked or grilled, but just, fun, laid-back food. This can go with pizza and, really fun stuff like that because it does have just a softness to it that can go with more laid-back food. You don't have to get too fancy here. But yeah, I agree. A lot of my notes are this is one wine that does do well with chocolate because it has that almost sweet edge.
I'm trying some cauliflower with some of the Concord grape jelly to see if that fruitiness brings the cauliflower to where we want it.
I did the nectarinas or whatever with it and with the jam, the white peach with the jam in the wine. It was really nice together too. We have a
that works really well.
Audience question?
Yeah, audience question for Mr. Jones.
If you, winemakers are typically excellent vocabulary wise, just lots of adjectives and colorful language. And I wonder, have you ever made a wine and was like, this is awful, I'm going to toss it out? Or do you just come up with new words to describe why this wine is unique and special? And I'm just curious.
Right?
He just makes up new words for it. Yeah.
We're definitely spin doctors as winemakers. Yeah. No, I think the trick as a winemaker is that when you do have a wine that's just like, oh, that's kind of weird or gross, it's usually because something's out of balance. So with wine, it's kind of like wine and perfume have something in common, which is that when a flavor is too intense, like you think of it as aromatics first to make it simpler, so you're not thinking of all the flavors, but like if a perfume just like, if you ever smelled someone and it's just like they smell straight, like they like sprayed flowers on them, it's like over the top, gives you like instant headache, right? That's
when that old
perfume.
lady walks into your aisle at the grocery store and you can like smell her entering at the
Right,
end.
yeah.
It's like baby powder perfume.
Yeah, or the old man who just like, you know, his cologne, it's just like way too spicy and over the top. You know?
Dad?
Good. Yeah, so this comes from, I mean, these are basically just too much of the perfume or cologne, or just like a perfume or cologne that, because it's kind of on the cheaper side, tends to just overdo one aromatic to like make it powerful, to make it seem like it's a value. But wines is kind of the same way. So if you have like way too much oak, it's going to be like way too smoky or whatever, and that's going to be gross. But if you take that wine and blend it with something else that's not oaky enough, now it's in balance. It's not gross anymore. If a wine's way too acidic and it's gross, blend it with something that doesn't have enough acid and it's balanced. So with wine, the core of a good wine is balanced flavor. There's almost no such thing as a bad flavor in wine. There's just like imbalance.
I have a couple things I wanted to throw in on there.
Yeah.
The first being, I think commercial wines too much go to that middle ground. They blend and they process and they follow the rules to the point where they just want to even out all of the negatives to the point that they end up evening out the positives as well. And you end up with this wine that's just sort of average. And that's part of what I like about your wine, is that your wines are like, this one's strong and then weak, and then this one's weak, and then like they have distinct profiles. They are different. It's not all the same wine with different food coloring. It's like a Jello or something. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that, as we were saying earlier, different people have different taste profiles. And a lot of things that are technically faults with wines, like Brettanomyces, is one that he mentions a lot, and it's like a funk that you get on there, and they've got all these really bad descriptors for it. But as you've known, if you watch, I like things like shiitake mushrooms and fish sauce and oyster sauce and kimchi and things that are technically spoiled or bad or like offensive to a lot of people. There are different tastes, and it's not like all of your wines are like that or anything, but I like that you can't buy anything off the shelf that has these type of faults that are just a different character, but you can with some of yours where it's, and I'm not saying it to downgrade your wine. I think your wine is fantastic, but they don't have the peaks because they don't have the valleys in commercial wine. And yours, and some of them you play around. Some of them are a little more like that, and some of them are just, like a rocky EKG, and you got all these characters in it. And I just wanted to throw that in because, everything you were saying is correct. I mean, obviously you're the one with all the knowledge. I'm just the one with the opinion. But I really like the way that plays out in the wines. I don't think you could do as good a food pairing if everything tastes the fucking same.
Yeah, I agree.
Lowest common denominator style.
I appreciate that, and I think that's very true. And that's one of the reasons why I technically fall into the natural wine category. Natural wine has been a big movement, which the name obviously implies it's more natural, less additives, less preservatives. But the kind of less obvious thing about natural wine is it tends to embrace a range of flavors, which normal winemakers blend out, exactly as you said, because they are too extreme and sometimes taste gross to some people. So it's like the bell curve of likingness. You're more out on the reaches. And so natural winemakers tend to embrace faults as distinctive flavor. my wines, my Vulture wines probably fall right in the middle of that natural wine, like embracing some funkiness. Whereas my lucid wines tend to be like way closer towards traditional winemaking.
Mhm.
So it's definitely like I'm playing in that middle ground between the two. Like Vulture, I'm more embracing it. Lucid, I'm playing the middle ground a little
I
more.
want to say not always though, because like the L1 Skin Contact is pretty far from any white you'll find on the shelf, and the L8 Wanderlust is pretty far from anything you'll find other than those ones that are listed as like whiskey barrel reds or whatever.
Well, I mean, with variation.
In general,
that is like in general. But yeah, so we don't go on too long. We're like almost hitting an hour and we're only on the third wine. I'm going to roll us into this next wine pretty quick here. And
the food or the literary pair, or the quote pairing is, "Hey, you guys, we're moving on to the next wine."
right. Oh, here, I will throw that out just because it's funny. The literary pairing is from Orson Welles. My doctor told me I had to stop throwing intimate dinners for 4 unless there are 3 other people.
Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't realize there's only 3 of us today, so I'm eating a whole smoked duck breast myself, apparently.
All right, for yourself the L7 Delirium Cabernet Sauvignon. There you go, Jalal. And this one is, as he was saying, kind of a more intense wine. You're getting big Cabernet Sauvignon flavor, so dark fruit, but also a lot of spiciness and herbaceousness. Part of that comes from the fact that Cabernet Sauvignon naturally has an herbaceous characteristic, kind of like bell pepper, grass, or jalapenos. But most American winemakers tend to de-emphasize this. They want GME fruit. So they ripen it too much and they remove all stems and leaves. I intentionally left a lot of stems in there. I fermented some of it whole cluster to actually emphasize that characteristic. And then to emphasize it even more, I aged it on both oak, but also cedar and cypress, as well as a little maple and hickory. The cedar and cypress really brought out that woodsy, herbaceous characteristic. So this wine has berry and chocolatey richness to it, but it also has spiciness, pepperiness, green pepperiness, herbaceousness, and it's smooth but lingering. There's all this flavor to it. This was the wine that when it was young was like way too bitter for a lot of people, but as it's aged has really come together. And Jerome put together a pairing that for me is just like natural for this wine.
Yeah, so it's a red bell pepper stuffed and roasted with tofu, chorizo, and corn in it, which just has a lot of flavors that go along with this. And you can, you put your plate over there. I really just tried to play off the different flavors in this while keeping it something that, Kevin can eat with his delicate sensibilities. But this is a really good one. It's an easy one to do at home. And I think of it as one of the great pantry clearers as well. Get a pepper or a tomato or a something, and just core it, cook it for a little bit on its own so you soften it and then stuff it with something. So this is a good one to use a lot of times, but it's especially great pairing with this because it's got that spicy chorizo notes along with some of the warming spices in there. But then it's got that like peppery, like capsicum type of notes that really go along with this wine as well. And then I've got some other things I'm going to try with it, but I think I made this one particularly to go with this wine here.
Yeah, that's super good. So if you don't have stuffed bell peppers at home, the reasoning behind that is when a wine already has that kind of bell peppery herbaceous note to it, that you can play off that with that component in the food. So you could do fajitas with this. You could do, a Philly cheesesteak, a burrito with sofritos, stop at
And sofritos, if you don't know, it's just it's a traditional sauce made with peppers, onions, garlic, and it just kind of mashed up. It's one of those things like a pesto or a adobo where there's no like one recipe. Every family's got their own adjustment to it, but it's basically the flavors that would go good with this wine cooked and then blended into a sauce. So it's perfect for this.
Yeah. So on that note, my literary pairing is from Cesar Chavez, and the quote is, "If you really want to make a friend, go to someone's house and eat with him. The people who give you their food give you their heart."
And if you guys want a friend, you can come to my house and I'll cook for you anytime.
It's one of the reasons why Jerome and I have gotten along so well over the years as brothers. Is he cooks awesome food, and I bring wine.
That's the reason I don't have a heart anymore.
You don't share your food?
You have given it away.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then my life pairing for this is building your own furniture, or maybe riding a stallion into battle, reading leather-bound books while sitting in your armchair, you're at your desk made of rich mahogany. It's very much an Anchorman wine. So I think that concludes this wine. Unless you have any more comments on pairings before we move on.
No, the shishito peppers were oddly bad with it, considering how well the bell peppers were with it. I don't know why, but
I would guess that has something to do with the fact that while the aromatics and flavor of this wine are peppery, in the sense that it actually has like aromatics of bell pepper and that kind of characteristic, the wine is in some ways almost too bitter already. And when you introduce a spice element, it tends to enhance bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
So it could just be bringing up the bitterness in the wine, which is already borderline too much.
And also, while I love char as a flavor element, it's a bitter flavor element.
Yeah.
So that, overloading that spectrum.
And that's one thing is you have to think about wine as part of your food almost. It's just like cooking with something. It's like if the wine has bitterness and you have bitterness in your food, they're going to enhance each other. So you have to be careful of that. So the last wine, L8 Wanderlust Red Blend. Our most popular wine. And it's just a really deep, dark, rich wine. It is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, 50%, so that same cab. But then the other 50% is 25% Barbera, which brings in more like fresh fruit and some nice crisp acidity, and 25% of Zinfandel, which, as you've seen, is very fruit forward and like almost sweet jammy in many cases. So in this wine, you really get this like montage of these intense flavors. You know, the backbone of the Cab Sauv, the freshness of the Barbera, and the jamminess of the Zinfandel come together.
And you also did the similar. A lot of them are one varietal, one grape type. This one has a blend of them, and they're like all like the deepest, darkest ones in different ways. You did the same thing with the woods and yeasts, etc. Like you've got natural and wild yeasts. You've got like beer yeast. You have like
this one's
oak, maple, cherry, hickory, like. At this point, I'm not even going off knowledge. I'm just sort of like listing all the woods and yeasts I know because they're like all in here.
Yeah, this
it's
was
really complex
wine.
And deep.
Yeah.
It's almost like a good chili that's just like you have all these complexities and you allow them to meld together and not only maintain those, but so you get like the combination of them, but you still get them each distinctly as well.
Yeah. Some blends can become too soft around the edges. So this one, I definitely like by keeping everything intense, even though they're balanced at a really high level. So yeah, you do get that smoky whiskey influence. You get that really ripe fruit influence.
That's a good descriptor, given like what we were talking about earlier. That this one, it's just kind of like real high intensity. Everything it's pushing all the boundaries.
In the same way that
to interrupt.
French food is balanced oftentimes at like moderate levels of everything. Thai food is balanced at really intense levels of freaking everything. So it's like balance doesn't mean moderation. It just means they're in balance.
Oh, that's a good point. Is there... and obviously, like, you're doing that with your wines, but is there, like, do people do that as well, where they, like, soften it across the board as well? Or are other wines, like, playing with that, like, high intensity level? I haven't really experienced a lot of wines like Wanderlust.
I think to some degree.
I'm not that knowledgeable,
So, I mean, to some degree, yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm the only one balancing wines on high intensity levels. I think that, like, philosophical mindset about it is something that when I've expressed to other winemakers, they'd be like, oh, that's kind of a cool metaphor. Like, they get what I'm saying. It's not a foreign concept, but I'm definitely pushing certain boundaries of flavors.
They like metaphors, but they don't like change. They're like, I half approve.
But yeah, and then no one else is doing the crazy woods either. So it's like a flavor influence that I've created. I mean, there's other people in history who have done it, but it's like very, very extremely rare. It barely happened in wine. And so it's a unique flavor you don't really get in other people's wines. So they can't, it's like, a lot of people don't use sweet and spicy in certain traditional cuisines as part of balance in food as much as, say, the Thai do. So they've almost like engaged two different, and bitter even, more different actual flavors in their balance. And so by adding woods, it's like I just have one more thing to use to balance my wine that makes it a little different. It's not necessarily better or worse. Other winemakers doing awesome things out there. It's just, I have a different flavor. It's just unique. So the food pairings on this, I think this is another one that for me can go with like more laid back stuff, your pizza and your barbecue. But in particular, because of that influence of some maple hickory and whiskey oak, you definitely go well with smoked stuff. So anything grilled or smoked can be a really great pairing with this. I'm sure that duck goes well. I'm so jealous. Why did it have to be vegan this week? But
I can get you some more now that I know where they sell this smoked. Yeah, I didn't do this one myself. Well, obviously, a lot of this is just cut up. A couple of them I cooked, but I didn't smoke this myself. Big a smoker as I am, this one was a store-bought one. It just seemed to make sense with some of these wines.
He does not own a smoker, just to be clarified. So
I rigged one up, though. Take an apple, you core it out, get a little tin. No, go ahead.
He called himself a smoker. He was not implying he's smoking.
So the life pairing for this is being adventurous, traveling, and camping under the stars with your lover. And the music pairing is all about traveling. It is Me Gustas Tu by Manu Chao. And if you haven't heard that song, really fun song, and just it was like the theme song of backpackers internationally for like 10 years. So
that song is really like hype, or hyphy, I guess they call it these. Where that it really is. I know exactly what song you're talking about. That's a really cool song. I like that for this.
Very much
it goes with the name, with the Wanderlust. This is a traveler's wine.
Yeah. Manu Chao is a cool artist because he also sings in like 4 different languages throughout his song. So it's like, Wanderlust. There you go.
You get stoned and you listen to his stuff and you're like not sure whether you're understanding him or whether you're like somehow like reading him through like the language barrier.
Yeah, that's fun stuff. So, and then the literary pairing is from Hippocrates. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. It's kind of you are what you eat, but fancier sounding. And I hope you guys are eating healthy at home and staying healthy and drinking healthy now with us. Do you have any more thoughts on the food pairing or other comments? I'm actually kind of out of my stuff on this wine.
This of all of your wines, I think is the best like meat pairing. This would be great with, a steak, a pork chop, a nicely seared like duck breast, and like because of that, not a lot of these are the perfect pairing for this. This is by far my favorite of your wines, but I didn't really make my board for this. But the two that stood out to me, or what I have here as pairing for this, is one, the smoked duck breast, because of the smoke, the fattiness, just like the richness of flavor. Duck breast, especially smoked, kind of follows that theme that, it's not here, it's not here, it's like up here, it's smoked and it's duck breast, which is all fatty and rich. And by a similar note, the kimchi is really fucking good with this. I tried the stuffed bell pepper and it was kind of underwhelming. I tried a little of the cauliflower and the mushroom. It was okay, even though they were like grilled and roasted. But those two were fantastic with it, in my opinion. I'm going to try some of my nori as well, see how that plays out.
So, as we're finishing up here, we're going to give you a little outro with some discount codes. If you guys like any of these wines and want to go buy them from the website, you can use the code ORGANIC to get $20 off any purchase of $100 or more. And if you're in California, that also will come with free shipping, because over 100 and you are free shipping. In other parts of the country, just a little more money spent and you get free shipping as well. So cool discounts. And if you want to do another kit, we've had our food and wine pairing streak here. We have one more next week. But then after that, we're doing Trivia Night. And the week after that, we're doing our new releases. And then in mid-August, I'm about to put this up on the website, we have the Sacramento SPCA a fundraiser special for them, which is also going to include like cute animal pairings, where we're gonna kind of sponsor some of their animals and help do some fundraising that way. So that'll be really fun. And if you want to get these kits, like I say, natural will get you 20% off on those kits off our website. So natural for 20% off the kits, organic for $20 off, $100 or more. You can use both of those codes and free shipping at the same time. Insane deals. And Jerome's going to show you guys those kits in case your guys are watching and don't know what the kits are, or want to check out the other ones you didn't do last time. We're going to spin this around for you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, we were supposed to do this earlier. We're not quite involved as you all suggested, but kind of wanted to show you some. And if you're doing this, then you kind of know what the shtick is, but just wanted to kind of show you a little more because we have updated. We now have a slightly larger 2-ounce or 50 millimeter kit for each of the tasters. Twice as large as it previously was for our small option. It's, they are accessible to everybody pack, but it's now a third of a bottle in total. So it's enough to get a lot of people to where you need to get. We also have our 100 ml kit, which 2/3 of a glass for each one, and all in told, it's about 2/3 of a bottle. So that's a very nice personal serving. We still have the 2-person kit, which is 1 bottle chosen per week, plus a couple of the 50 ml kits. And that's enough to taste through, and then you get 1 bottle to enjoy more a little in bulk so that you can quite, enjoy your evening. We also have the 5-bottle kit. It's the best deal for you and the best deal for us. $90 to $120 depending on the wine. Last few weeks it's been $97, so it's a pretty good deal for very high-end natural wines. Getting it for $20 a bottle is pretty awesome, and it also it gives you a lot to enjoy and helps keeps us alive during these times. We also have our monthly subscription kit where you get 1 to 3 bottles. You get some options of what you want with that, and you get natural, local, homemade crafts and art, and a lot of that I had over in front. So you got my meat on this cutting board and my wine, this branded to-go mug, because we only put out items that we ourselves would use, that we think are awesome. Aaron Botto makes these scented natural candles. The Israel Family Farms make these scented soaps. We got these coloring books, this awesome resin necklaces. So we just try to make it so that everything is accessible to everybody, and we give back with everything we sell. So if you want to support us, if you want to help yourself out with a better deal and more little perks, this is the way to do it. And I just wanted to thank all you guys for being here today. This is what keeps us alive and what allows us to keep bringing all this to you and helping grow our community.
So yeah, thank you guys very much. That ends the show. So thank you all for joining us. We're going to see you guys again next Sunday for our food and wine pairing at 4 p.m. And also feel free to hit us up for our private group tastings. We've been doing a few of these a week, and it's ramping up to 5 or 10 a week soon. It's becoming incredibly popular with everything from corporate groups, team happy hours, VIP events, and we've had sorority conventions, baby showers, and birthday parties. So if you have a private event, hit us up. We got you covered. So all right, see you guys again next time.